Hello and welcome to the Cove's Body, Mind and Soul series. In this episode, we will be looking at the Jewish religion. Our guest speaker today is Rabbi Ralph Genende. Rabbi Ralph is a senior rabbi and manager to Jewish Care Victoria, Melbourne's largest Jewish organisation, and is currently the principal rabbi to the Australian Defence Force, member of the Religious Advisory Council. Rabbi, welcome and thanks for supporting the Cove. First of all, what is the Jewish religion, and can you please provide a brief overview of the Jewish faith framework?
Thank you, and thank you for this interview. I'm reminded, providing something brief, there is a Talmudic tale about a rabbi who somebody came to him from the outside and said, "Please explain to me Judaism while I stand here on one foot." In other words, I want an instant answer. Very hard to condense some 4,000 years, at least 3,500 years of Jewish history and civilization into something very brief and succinct. First of all, of course, it is an ancient religion. It is the oldest of the monotheistic religions, belief in one God. And in that way, it gave birth to both Christianity and to Islam, both highly influenced by Judaism. It is, its story is contained in what is called the Old Testament. We call it the Bible or the Hebrew Scriptures, because old can imply that it is something that is old and not that useful any longer. And it is therefore the story of incredible, important values that are important to, I'd say, all the monotheistic faiths, if not to all religions, which is values such as charity, such as belief in the worth of every single human being, as they are created in the image of God. Therefore, they have worth, value, substance, equality of human beings, and the entitlement that we have as human beings to be free, which was born out of, particularly for us as a Jewish people, from what is called the Egyptian experience, the fact that we were enslaved in Egypt for several hundred years and then liberated by Moses through the power of God, taken to Mount Sinai, where the 10 Commandments, 10 essential principles, which still underpin what we call Western civilization, were promulgated. So that would be a brief summary.
Thank you. So how does the Jewish faith support a believer, and what difference does it make to the individual?
Well, I think that to a believer, and sometimes even to people who are not strong believers, but just who can identify with the story and the culture, Judaism is about a story, about a relationship or a covenant, special contract with God. And with that covenant comes hope and comes meaning, and also comes coping strategies. So therefore, the faith can really make a difference to an individual.
Great. And how does the Jewish faith support defense capability?
Well, I'd say that I think it was Freud who said we are only as strong if we have strong ideas. And I therefore believe that the strength of our ideas and our principles support us in situations like when we find ourselves within the defense framework. And the principles of Judaism and of the Jewish faith are very much in sync with the principles and values of the defense force itself. And therefore, I think people who align with the values or can identify with the values and principles of Judaism, of the Jewish faith, should feel very comfortable within a defense framework, and it should enhance their capability in that framework as well.
And how can a local commander support an adherent to the Jewish faith?
Well, I think that's in a very practical way and in a principled way as well. Practically, it's recognizing that each faith has its own distinct practices or rituals, which are important to that faith. And in Judaism, those principles and rituals would circle around or relate to the Sabbath and festival. The Sabbath being from Friday at sundown till Saturday when the stars come out. That's the Jewish Sabbath. And the stricter, the more religious the person is, the more they adhere to wanting to try and do as little work and regular things on the Sabbath. Now, that's not always practical within the defense framework, but it is possible and practical. And you would ask that obviously the local commander supports the efforts if the person wants to go to the synagogue on the Saturday, if it's possible for them not to do regular work on the Saturday as they would normally be doing, to support that. So on the Sabbath, the festivals are pretty much the same. The second aspect would be in terms of dress codes. This is specifically now if we attract Jewish women, the dress code. I think for the men, the dress code would not be any different, but for women, there are some differences in the actual dress code, which I know the ADF can and does support, and so a local commander could lend his support to that. And for men, it's really that for some religious men, beards are very important, and where possible to support the beards in a neat, obviously, fashion that is not going to interfere with their work in defense. And the third area where I'd say they could support is in terms of kosher food. That's food Jewish people. And again, the more religious they are, the more important that would be. But it is, I guess it goes around that there's only certain products are considered kosher, only certain meat is considered kosher. People are familiar with the term halal for the Muslims, and then kosher, the equivalent is kosher for Jewish people. So meat needs to be certified. And of course, we, the Muslims as well, actually don't eat any pork or food products as well. So I would say those are a lot of practical ways in which a local commander could support the adherent to the faith. But then in a sort of a more philosophical way, if you like, it's about what the Defense Force is about, respect for people's different values. And to use a phrase that was coined by a former chief rabbi, it's about respecting the dignity of our differences. And and I think the commander leads the way for all of the people who are serving under him to show, that we are different. This is the dignity of differences, but we can work together by respecting each other's differences. We can actually create a greater sense of unity. And also, I guess, answering both this question and the former question as you asked me as well about how faith supports defense capability, it's about saying to people who come from different faiths, different religions, you are not alone. We support you, and you are part of our wider, wonderful, colorful fabric that comprises Australian society and the Australian Defence Force.
Rabbi, that last question, that really was the type of information I was after. So you spoke about the Sabbath, you spoke about the dress code for females, the beards, the certified food, and the no pork. Is there anything else in regards to the religion that you think commanders, people in defence should take into consideration?
I guess the only other thing which I didn't mention is that there are, again, this would apply really to a religious practitioner. And, so a lot of our defense Jewish personnel would not necessarily do it, but there are certain fast days. We have 5 fast days on our calendar. The one that is probably most well known is the Yom Kippur, or the Day of Atonement, which is a 24-hour fast. And so that is one that would probably be practiced by most Jewish people, even regardless of their religious standards. Most of them would still recognize and maybe fast on Yom Kippur. So it would be for a commander sort of just to be aware of those days as well.
That's fantastic, Rabbi. Thank you. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
No, I hope that I gave a reasonable overview. That's what I tried to do.
All right, thank you. Well, Rabbi, thank you very much for your time today. We at the Cove are very grateful for the very valuable information you have provided us today, and I'm sure it will definitely assist our listeners. We also thank our listeners for tuning in. Our next talk continues with the monotheistic faith, and we'll concentrate on Christianity. If you have any questions, please feel free in contacting soldiercove@gmail.com, and we'll be sure to get back to you. Don't forget to download the Cove app. It's PME in your pocket, anywhere, anytime.